people came out of their houses and smelled the hot, stinging air and covered their noses from it. And the children came out of the houses, but they did not run or shout as they would have done after a rain. Men stood by their fences and looked at the ruined corn, drying fast now, only a little green showing through the film of dust. The men were silent and they did not move often. And the women came out of their houses to stand beside their men, to feel whether this was the time men would break. The women studied the men's faces secretly, for the corn could go, as long as something else remained. The children stood nearby, drawing figures in the dust with bare toes, and the children sent exploring senses out to see whether men and women would break. The children peeked at the faces of the men and women, and then drew careful lines in the dust with their toes. The women knew it was all right, and the watching children knew it was all right. Women and children knew deep in themselves that no misfortune was too great to bear if the men were whole. The women went into the houses to their work, and the children began to play, but cautiously at first. As the day went forward, the sun became less red. It flared down on the dust-blanketed land. The men sat in the doorways of their houses. Their hands were busy with sticks and little rocks. The men sat still, thinking and figuring. One man, one family, driven from the land. This rusty car creaking along the highway to the west. I lost my land. A single tractor took my land. I am alone and I am bewildered. And in the night one family camps in a ditch, and another family pulls in another. Tents come out. The two men squat on their hams, and the women and children listen. Here is the note. You who hate the change and fear revolution. Keep these two squatting men apart. Make them hate, fear, suspect each other. Here is the angle of the thing you fear. This is the zygote. For here, I lost my land is changed. A cell and a split. From the splitting grows the thing you hate. We lost our land. The women stood silently and watched, and where a number of men gathered together, the fear went from their faces and anger took its place. And the women sighed with relief, for they knew it was all right. The break had not come, but the break would never come as long as the fear could turn into wrath. Tiny points of grass came through the earth, and in a few days the hills were pale green with the beginning year.
On the 14th day of April in 1935, there struck the worst of dust storms that ever filled the sky. You could see that dust storm a-coming. The cloud looked death-like black. And through our mighty nation, it left a dreadful track. From Oklahoma City down to the Arizona line, Dakota and Nebraska, to the lazy Rio Grande. It fell across our cities just like a curtain of black rolled down. We thought it was our judgment. We thought it was our doom. All our relatives of dust the wind had blown. Well, it covered up our fences, Lord, it covered up our barns, it covered up our tractors in his wild and dusty store. So we loaded up our jalopies and we piled our families in. We rattled down the highway and never come back again. On the 14th day of April in 1935, there struck the worst of dust storms that ever filled the sky.